Okay, we're in good shape. Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming out today. I take 1 week off and it seems like it's been forever. I get used to doing this every Friday, and when I don't do it, it feels weird. Last Friday, we were at Kennedy Space Center, hanging out, checking out that. Somewhere around here, Jill's making fun of me, but I got my picture taken where they superimpose you over an astronaut's outfit. So I felt like a little kid, see my head sticking out of a spacesuit type thing. It's pretty funny. But anyway, I got a kick out of it. I've always wanted to go to Kennedy Space Center. This is the first time I ever went, and I really got a kick out of it. I enjoyed it a lot. Lots of pictures, whatnot. We took some time out, and this is something that we do. This is part of what I want to talk about this morning is looking for leads and lead sourcing and what's going on in the world right now. We're always looking for opportunity. Jill and I are. A good example of that is we were over in Cape Canaveral, Rockledge area in Florida. Had a nice Airbnb right on the intercoastal waterway there. It's gorgeous. So one of the things we looked at is how do other people run their vacation rentals, their short-term rentals? What are they doing differently? What are they doing the same? What could we improve on? These are things that we look at. So we're always checking to see how we can be better at what we do, how we can add more value. Because here's what I figured out. The more value you can add to somebody else's life, no matter what you're doing, the more money you can make. Absolute fact. So this Airbnb was very nice. It was a converted garage. A couple things they could have done differently, but a couple nice touches. Like when we walked in, there was a little, first of all, they showed us around the place, which was not what we do. We don't greet our guests because we know a lot of people are non-confrontational, or they don't want to be, they're trying to get away, so they don't necessarily want to have to be on. They want to just go to their room, go to their apartment and go on about their business. So because I recognize that, I purposely don't meet them at the property for my guests. So that said, these folks did, which was a little odd. It was a little different. It was okay, and they're very nice people, but it was just weird. We weren't expecting it, so it was a little different for us. But regardless, it was fine. But one cool thing they did is they had like a little frame, little picture frame, and in that it said, "Welcome, Jill and Tyler." I thought that was pretty cool. And they also had a thing with the Wi-Fi password, a little picture frame right on the counter. So no matter what, you would remember that they care. I thought that was pretty cool. And you remember, you can see what the Wi-Fi code is, which I thought was pretty neat. But I found that real estate over there, there's a pretty wild swing. There's a lot of opportunity over on that coast, was one thing I noticed. They took a lot of damage during the storms. So there's a lot of, during Irma and the recent hurricanes, I guess they caught the backside of Irma. So a lot of boathouses tore up. I think there'd be a lot of opportunities for arbitrage. For those of you in the mastermind, that is one thing I'm going to cover, the principle of arbitrage and how you can apply that to what we do. You see, I don't believe so much in the wholesaling as an identity, but I do believe in arbitrage. And by that, I mean buy low, sell high. There are times that you will come across things in your journey to build your portfolio as an investor that you can make additional money while in the same transaction. Here's a good example. As a realtor, when I close on a property, if I'm working with the buyer, I try to take my commission as a promissory note instead of a check at the closing table. So for me, I would rather carry my commission back as a note and charge, 6-7% interest, take payments essentially for my commission over a period of time, then collect the check up front. Here's why. I had a great year this year. And that said, I've had a lot of great years lately. If I make too much money in 1 year, it makes it more difficult to mitigate my tax liability. So one of the ways that I can reduce my tax liability in this tax year is to take my whatever money I make in payments over the course of a period of time. So an example of that is, let's say I sell somebody a 4-unit building or a duplex or something like that. Instead of the real estate commission, sometimes like on a traditional house, like I've got several house and condo listings, it's a fact of doing business. But investors seem to get all caught up on that, especially investors that are sellers get all caught up on the real estate commission. So can take my commission out of the equation. And how I do that basically is the buyer pays my fee in that case when I'm working with an investor buyer. Because at the end of the day, the seller's really not paying the fee because the seller's cashing checks. They're not writing checks. And there's two sides of that story. Some people believe the opposite, whatever. But at the end of the day, let's be honest. The seller's job is to deposit checks and make decisions. That's their job. Their job is not to write checks at all, period. At least not when they're my seller. They should be greedy and all about cashing checks. So if I can remove the commission from the negotiation when I'm representing a buyer, that's huge because now the seller doesn't have to mentally earmark that amount of money. Like if the seller agrees to $100,000 and let's say there's a 7% commission, they're going to mentally think, well, I'm only going to net 93 out of a $100,000 offer minus closing costs. But when I can take that $7,000 objection off the table and say, no, we need to be at 93 and here's why, which has nothing to do with commission. It makes the negotiation go a lot easier. Now, from the buyer side, they can now use my commission as an expense. Now, I'm not a CPA, but if you've got a debt against a property that is generating cash flow, and let's say you're making me payments for, I don't know, it could be 12 months, depending on what you want the payments to be. It could be 10 years. Every monthly payment you make me has interest attached to it. Those payments, that is debt service. That's tax deductible on an income property. Okay. Again, check with your CPA, make sure that applies in your situation, but I've never had a CPA tell me to the contrary, put it that way. So that's one of the ways that we can add value if you're a realtor. It doesn't work as well in the residential market with normal houses that, and non-investors, as people are going to consume. It doesn't work that well with them because the buyer doesn't see the benefit. Because the buyer's like, well, I don't want to pay the commission either. And then we do the hot potato game, right? The seller doesn't want to pay it. Buyer doesn't want to pay it. It winds up going FSBO and they wind up selling it for less money. And then I kind of giggle. But anyway. So one of the things I noticed, we were over there on the other coast this week, was there's a big difference, big swing in prices. In other words, there's a lot of multifamily over there that's priced right, I got to say, which is kind of weird. Makes me think something's wrong. And it's on the market. Some of it's underpriced. So we've already started looking at some opportunities over there just to see, kind of get to the bottom of what's going on over there, what makes it different. So I'll let you know what I come up with that. But anytime I travel, folks, I always want to know what's going on in that market. When I was in Dallas recently, I took some time out. I wanted to see what's going on in the marketplace. Now, I don't necessarily pay too much attention to the single family space because for what I buy multifamily. And I'm now looking at, I will look at single mobile homes on their own land on a case by case basis. But primarily when I say I'm looking at a market, I look at a market based on what I want to buy. I'm not really concerned about condos or townhomes or any of that. But I did, when I was in Dallas, I found my friends stayed at an upscale short-term rental. And it was an upscale apartment building. I mean, really nice. This place is gorgeous. I mean, it had, when they called it a rec room, they need to come up with a different title because it was far from a rec room. This place was gorgeous. I mean, I can't even begin to describe it. Flat screen TVs everywhere, professional grade pool tables, video games, you name it, fireplaces everywhere. I mean, this is just in the common area. That doesn't even get into the actual units inside. It was kind of crazy how much they offered. And they were quite reasonable. The monthly rent on these places for a 2-bedroom was $1,200. So the lady that rented their Airbnb is getting $2,500 a week. So she's getting $10,000 a month and her rent cost is $1,200. Talk about cash cow. And the way she set it up, she's got 6 of them in the building. So she's got somebody that works as a shuttle that will pick them up at the airport. And she's worked a deal out with Uber where she will pay your Uber if the shuttle's not available. She will pay your Uber from the airport to the place and from the place back to the airport. So how she's does so considerably well is she knows that Dallas is a big town for conventions. So she buys ad space on all these convention circulars. She uses sales funnels to keyword optimize to when people are searching for FinCon, her ad will come up like on Facebook and things like this. They call that retargeting. You ever notice that you go on Amazon to shop for something, and then you go on Facebook or YouTube and you see what you were just shopping for up on the right-hand side. Or if you go on like the Wall Street Journal's website, or hell, you go on the Walmart website and you'll see examples of retargeting. It's brilliant. It's creepy, but it's brilliant. We do some of that, admittedly. That's why sometimes you think, God, he's always watching me. Everywhere I go, I see cash flow guys. What the hell's up with that? It's called retargeting. But that's a great way for her to get people in her short-term rental. You think she's grossing 10 grand a month. Can't argue those numbers. And her biggest expense is the rent at $1,200. So she's, $8,800 in the green from word one. And apparently she stays booked year round. Did a little bit of research, and then I reached out to her after we all got back. I'm like, hi, I'm the creepy stranger that was in your place that you don't know. But I wanted to ask questions and find out where she was at. So she shared the information with me. It was pretty impressive. And I said, she's got 6 of these. So she's grossing $60,000 a month. That's a month. And her startup expenses were minimal because she had to come up with first and security of each place, and she had to furnish them. So she's got maybe 20, 30 grand invested in these properties. I don't want to get off on a tangent on short-term rentals, but I will say this. They require systems. And for those of you that are taking part of the mastermind, we're going to talk a lot about systems and getting yourself in place to bring other people in to help you with many of the tasks that it takes. One of the biggest reasons investors don't make as much money as they'd like to is because they run out of time. Most of you that are listening to this have a job or have some sort of employment. Want to get more people successful, and we want to grow our team. We hope that some of the people that come out of the mastermind would want to work with us in the future in deals. That's always been my goal as far as any type of coaching type scenario I've done. And Lance is a good example of that. Lance, I helped him early on. I'm at one of my cash flow events, and he got stuck in a property, needed to get unstuck, and I would help to get him unstuck. I added value to him. He turns around and adds value to me. If you guys are members of Cash Flow Guys community, he helps me manage that. He, along with Beth, helps me manage that. So he then gives back to me, and then I in turn give back to him. Like, he's got deals he needs help analyzing. He knows he can rely on me, and he'll send those deals to me. We get on the phone, we'll get on Zoom, we'll break those all down to give him value. So my point here is it's a constant exchange of value. Because Lance provides so much value to me and the team as a whole, I invited him to the mastermind as a guest because he provides a lot of value to the equation. I want to give back to him. As investors, guys, it's important that you're always thinking about how can I add value to whoever I'm working with. And that may be, let's say, your real estate attorney. What can I do for my attorney and it's okay to think this way. Trust me, I do. What can I do with my attorney to provide value to them besides just writing them a check? If I can provide additional value, there's a pretty good chance they'll give me additional value. I would like to think, and I'm pretty sure I can prove this, that my attorneys go above and beyond for me. As an example, my CPA goes above and beyond because I provide them a lot of value. And I still pay them for their services, but I provide them a lot of value. So there's a constant exchange of value going back and forth. I get a lot of referral business, so I don't have to spend a lot of money in advertising. Attorneys, CPAs, everybody that I've used in my team has provided me referrals. I'm a real estate listing agent. I will work with a certain number of buyers, not a lot, but I primarily like to focus on listings because my strong suit is negotiations and marketing. Knowing my strong suits, my team knows this, and the people that I work with, my vendors know this. So they automatically, when they think about real estate, they think about me, and then I wind up listing the property. Sometimes I list their own properties. Sometimes I list properties for their clients. See how the constant exchange of value goes. Lance has done things for me, and then Lance got a washer and dryer that I had sitting here. He happens to be an appliance repair guy. So he can turn around and sell that thing and make himself some money. It wasn't worth me dealing with. And frankly, my wife was going to kill me if I didn't get it out of the shed. So there's that. Happy wife, happy life, you know what they say. But Eric Rizzo is another good example of that. Eric is a guy that is constantly providing value to everybody in his circle. I'm not to say that the rest of you don't. It's just that I happen to know these two guys especially do a great job of providing a lot of value to people in the investing community. Therefore, people provide them a lot of value. It's a constant exchange. I talk to Eric off the record on a regular basis to help him through things if he needs help. Sometimes I need help and he's able to help me. There's a lot of things I don't know about. So I'll rely on things like the engineering things and site prep. And sometimes we do a little bit of brainstorming. We've been out boating together and done some brainstorming. These are all exchange of values that don't necessarily have to do with anybody writing each other a check. And I think if, as a society, we could do more of that, that'd be kind of awesome. So back to the mastermind, I'm excited about that. We got everything ready. We've opened the Facebook group. I'm going to be posting some videos in there actually today, this afternoon. I'll be working on that. This weekend is Larry Harbolt's Never Step Into a Bank program. If you guys have already been to that event, remember, it's free. You can repeat it for free. So if you're in the Tampa Bay area this weekend and you've already attended that event once or twice or 15 times, come on back and hang out with us. It's running today, which I'm here talking to you, so I'm not there. It's tomorrow and on Sunday. So come on back. Lance, I know you're going to the note course. I will see you. I talked to Frankie last night. I know you guys are going together to the note course. I think tomorrow we're going to leave Larry's course a little early, and including Larry, and go sit in on Pete's course for a little bit. So probably link up with you guys. What questions do we have? I've got a couple questions that came in by email, but if you guys don't have any questions right at the moment, besides Chevelle, I'll catch you right now, then we'll go ahead and get started. Amanda, I'll work with you on that time issue because I think I can help you through that. You got a lot going on, that's for sure. But you guys are accomplishing some amazing things. So good news. Get a drink of water here and off we go. Chevelle says, did you have some shared space with the homeowners? You mentioned converted garage. Seems reasonable to do a meet and greet if you'll be seeing people on the same space versus your setup where they have an entire unit to themselves. Did you have some shared space with the homeowners? Oh, yes. So, no, we didn't really have shared space, Chevelle. So what this was a converted garage. They had a detached garage. They converted it as a two and a half car garage. And they made like an efficiency apartment out of 1.5 of the stalls. Basically, they reduced it to the size of a storage room for them. And the rest of it was converted to an apartment. It was very nicely done. You know, they're older folks, so it was kind of like 1980s, but it still was nice. It was very clean, and that's good. That's more important. So it seems reasonable to do a meet and greet if you're seeing people on the same space as your setup with your entire unit to themselves. Thoughts? Yeah, for me, I'm not as risk adverse when in regard to that as I used to be, and partially because I've put systems in place. I would used to be worried about people coming in on a regular basis and trashing the place or whatever. But like here at my vacation rentals in Tarpon Springs, I've got a camera system on the outside. I don't have them inside the apartments, but I've got them outside. We've done a lot here, and it's gorgeous, and got the landscaping all dialed in. And actually, we just had a bunch of work done since the fire. We got new furniture outside and all kinds of stuff. But I've got a camera system that runs 24 hours a day on the exterior of the property, security system, and it records it, so it keeps track of things. One of the other things that we're implementing is sound monitors. It doesn't record what's going on in the unit. it instead tracks the decibel levels. It will also track how many cell phones are in the unit. So it will tell if there are 10 cell phones in the unit. If there's 10 cell phones in my unit, either the guy's a cell phone dealer or we're having a party, one or the other. Well, I don't think that I've rented any cell phone dealers yet. Even if I did, that wouldn't be a problem, but I doubt they carry all their inventory with them in the unit. So I'm going to go ahead and say that there's 10 people with cell phones in the unit. That could present a problem. Max occupancy is 6. I don't really like to have more than 4 in my apartments. So I would use, that's a system that we're implementing to eliminate the parties. Now, because we live here, we haven't had but one party issue. And because we live here, they had to deal with Jill and I in the middle of the night. It didn't go well for them, the young folks. They were not happy with our results, and they were kind enough to share that in their feedback. Gotta love that. They felt like we were mommy and daddy. It's like, well, if you wouldn't put cigars out on my furniture and rip the screens off my windows and act like a fool at 2 a.m, I guess I wouldn't have to get out of bed to bother you. Yeah, that happened. As far as the things inside, I've got contents coverage on my insurance, which is something I've learned recently. If you're going to do vacation rental, you need to have riders on your policy to allow for it. When you go into short-term tenancy, there are exclusions in most insurance policies I've found to prevent the contents from being covered. So I had to do some amendments to my insurance policy, some addendums to be able to, or riders, I guess is what you call them, to allow for the coverage of the furniture. As far as the actual couches and all that go, it's what I have is like our old living room set is in one apartment, and then Jill and I bought all new leather. The other apartment, we bought the furniture. It's nice, but it's used, and we got a great deal on it. So if it got destroyed, I don't know if I would necessarily waste my time doing a claim. I'm more concerned about fire, or if a hurricane came through. But after the last storm came through, I'm pretty confident with damage in that regard, and I know that I'm well insured. So if something goes wrong, I've got my own insurance. Depending on the booking channel that I'm using, whether it be Airbnb, VRBO, HomeAway, one of those, most of those have some sort of insurance either baked in or available. Like with HomeAway or VRBO, I can mandate they either have to buy a coverage policy of X amount or leave a cash deposit. What I've found just by doing it, a lot of people don't like to leave the cash deposit. They'd rather just pay for the insurance. The insurance is $59 for the duration of their stay. It covers them up to $5,000. I know that I can get furniture for less than $5,000 for 800 square foot apartment. And if it was a fire, my homeowner's insurance would cover that anyway. So this would basically be damage coverage. Well, if they could trash, I don't think the furniture's not worth $5,000. It's in there. So I could go buy brand new at Rooms to Go and be less than $5,000. Does what work with tablets or laptops? Let me unmute you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. What you were just talking about with the security system that can detect cell phones.
Yeah. I'll put the link up in the Facebook community. Excuse me. It is mobile optimized. There's a couple different brands out there. Mm-hmm. Some of them have notification where if the noise goes over a certain level, it will send you a text message and let you know. There's all kinds of different ways it could be set up to notify you, but yeah, that's absolutely doable.
Well, because I was wondering if the 10 cell phones could be 3 cell phones, 4 cell phones, couple tablets and laptops. See what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Something to think about.
Yeah. I mean, you got to think so if everybody's got a cell phone and everybody's got it won't, for whatever reason, it triggers the thing omitting a signal. In other words, most tablets, I have an iPad, and I happen to have a wireless internet connection with that I pay extra for. So in that case, I'm putting out a signal. The detector will pick up that signal. Your cell phone is sending and receiving. It's a two-way communication. The laptop only has a Wi-Fi, at least most laptops. I'm an Apple guy, so I don't know if Windows does dial up or not, but most of your laptops would not kick off because they're not they only have Wi-Fi, and it doesn't track Wi-Fi. It only tracks the actual data connection.
Okay.
And most of the, as far as I looked into that, because I thought about the same thing with mobile devices, not non-cell phones, only 20% of the iPads ever sold came with, or people chose the upgraded, came with the internet baked in. The rest of them are Wi-Fi. So statistically, I would think that if it's triggering as a mobile device, that it's probably a cell phone. That said, it doesn't mean you have to swing the Gestapo into full, full regard the minute that you detect 10 devices. But you can make a phone call and say, hey, just check it in, make sure things are going okay. And when you hear Tone Loc playing in the background at 600 decibels, then you think you might have a problem.
Right.
Again, the second piece of that equipment would be the decibel meter. If you got 10 people sitting there and they're meditating, great. You got 10 people in a drum circle, we may have a problem. So I probably wouldn't have a problem with 10 visitors. I've actually had people have 10 visitors, but I do have a problem with 10 overnight guests because now people are sleeping on floors and it's a lot more wear and tear on the unit. So I want no part of it. So that's that.
Okay.
Let's see here. Amanda says, I have a time issue. Yes, you do. We will address that and get you on board. And by the way, guys, if you are in the Tampa Bay market and you're anywhere, and if you think going to a really good meeting where you will never get pitched anything is of value to you, then go to Amanda's meeting. She puts on a RIA meeting. I think it's one of the best in the area. There's never any pitches, no guru garbage, none of that. It's an authentic round table type meeting. She facilitates it. It's a great meeting. It's in Spring Hill, so it's a drive, but it's still a great meeting. So definitely get out there. I wanted to give her a plug. But I want to go on to the question here. We got one about, is a repaired sinkhole a deal breaker if the property you're planning to hold onto is a rental? First of all, I'm going to say, I hate to say this, but it does depend. And it really depends on what's your exit strategy. There's nothing necessarily, they say, I should say this. I personally have never owned long-term a sinkhole property. I am not a fan, but I know a lot of people that are. And I would like to see Amanda's response to this if she's available to come up, because Amanda's up in Spring Hill that like every third house has a sinkhole. For me, it's a deal breaker, but that's just me. I'm not saying don't do it. I just think it's a deal breaker because I used to be on the fence about it, but because people said if it was pinned or something or other, it was better than sorry for the cough drop, guys, but I got a tickle. If it was pinned, then that's better than a house that's not on a sinkhole. Except for when all that stuff happened in Land O'Lakes a couple months ago, that house was pinned and it got sucked up whole. I mean, can't argue that. Amanda loves sinkhole homes, is what she says, and she buys them all day. So interesting. I personally don't like them because I don't know. I would feel terrible if the thing opened up and swallowed my tenant's whole. I'm not quite convinced that my insurance would cover that. Buying them as a rental, though, here's the advantage to them. The fact that people are scared of them on one side could be a huge advantage because it reduces the buyer pool. Because here's a perfect example. I say, oh, hell no. And Amanda's like, oh, hell yes. There's a lot more people like me that are nervous about them than there are like Amanda. So Amanda doesn't have a lot of competition as compared to a traditional house not in a sinkhole. The lower the buying pressure, the better deal you should be able to negotiate. Should. That said, there's too many people that feel like Amanda does, in my opinion. So the people tend to start fighting over them. Amanda doesn't because she buys based on numbers, period. And she's diligent on her numbers. That's why she's continually successful. They say, if you can insure it, Because here's the thing, guys, you still got to think about, you still need to get insurance, at least for liability, if nothing else. And if you're going to keep them for the long haul, if you could buy a house that would normally be 200 grand for 125 and it rents for a good amount of money and you're making a decent cash flow and you can hold it for the long term, I guess why not? I mean, we can worry about it opening up, but it doesn't happen all that often. Me, I like to be a sleep at night kind of guy, but then again, any one of my properties at any time could have an issue. Hell, they've hit sinkholes in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm only a few blocks from the Mississippi River. So that could happen. I got buildings right down the street from the Mississippi River. So, I mean, who knows? The river could crest. I mean, the river went up like 20 feet or something like last year. All kinds of weird stuff can happen with natural disasters. So I'm not going to be absolute on this topic. I don't necessarily think it's a deal breaker in every instance. I'm just simply not a fan. And this is a question I'm going to ask for Amanda to answer, because I don't know the answer. Is insurance generally higher for a property you're renting out than for one that you would live in for myself? Oh, not in a sinkhole. I can actually answer that one, but I would like to know Amanda's opinion on what I thought it said. Your insurance, the cost of your insurance, the liability is generally, in my experience, higher for a property you do not occupy versus one that you do. So you can expect to pay a little more for insurance in a lot of cases on a rental property than you would for a long-term hold property. Two identical properties, you live in one. One of the things, that I'm not an insurance agent by any means, one of the things I learned in the last couple of years that I did not know, if you have a vacant house, nobody lives there every day, most homeowner policies do not cover that property. So you buy a house to go fix it and flip it or whatever you're going to do with it, and it goes into your name. If nobody's living there, the homeowner's policy that you have does not necessarily cover that. So you'll want to check with the insurance company and make sure they have coverage. They will cover an empty house. And don't try to play the game, well, yeah, we live there, and then there's a claim, and then you got a problem. So always check with the insurance company and let them know, hey, nobody's here. What they'll do, if that's the case, is they'll sell you a rider policy, because basically a vacant house is from the insurance guy's perspective, is the riskiest thing out there. More chance for people to break in, pipes to burst, the house to flood, damage could happen. Nobody's there to protect the asset. So that's the way it was explained to me. From a risk perspective, that is the riskiest scenario. But as far as sinkhole, I would like to know Amanda's comment and see. She says repaired sinkhole insurance is about the same price. Depending on who you use, it might be slightly higher, but not enough to walk away. Okay, cool. Amanda says, come to Mama with the sinkhole properties. That just cracks me up. I just had a visual. I can see her like some old lady dressed, like curly hair, a bunch of cats running around, and she sat on the front porch going, come to Mama, bring me them sinkholes, get on up in here. That cracks me up. But anyway, so yeah, there you go. Guys, if you're wholesaling or you're out looking for property for yourself, you come across a sinkhole home, it doesn't work for you, call Amanda. There's your buyer. She'll buy them, or I bet you she can put you in touch with somebody that will for a few $1,000s. Eric says, I know someone getting a rental property that had a sinkhole repaired. So while on this topic, any info would be great. She's not on the call today. Oh, that sucks. LOL. Chevelle says the issue was that they underpinned the house, but didn't do the recommended grouting to fix and fill the sinkhole. Oh, God. So, Amanda, how much have you had success getting the properties financed, sinkhole properties? And are you always paying cash? No problems getting them financed? Good. So appraisal, guys, comes down to, that's one thing I've heard has to be fixed. Okay, if it's a repaired sinkhole. So if it's non-repaired, then what? She must be at work. I got to figure out a way to get Amanda out of her job so she can come help me with these questions. Buy with cash. Ooh, God, that's a dirty word. Buy with cash. Ugh. All right. If you insist, buy with cash, whatever. my eye starts to twitch. That's why. The company did the repair, filed bankruptcy, so that's something to be concerned about. Yeah, if there's a warranty. I mean, here's the thing. The repair should be done with permits, I would assume. There should be some sort of engineering drawings to show what's been done. Assuming all that is in place, great. I have a listing right now down in St. Pete. Gorgeous house. Wasn't when she started. It had settlement, not a sinkhole. What it was there was a drainage pipe from back in the 50s that the city thought they capped off. It was basically a retired drainage pipe system. When they built the subdivision, they thought they capped it off. Well, they didn't. So stormwater got into the pipe. The pipe was old. It had failed. It happened to run under this client's house. That caused the dirt to wash out from underneath the house. And, oh, that's good. So VA will loan on sinkhole homes. So there you go. But anyway, the dirt washed out from underneath the corner of this house. It dropped the corner of the house, which caused some cracks. You can see ladder cracks, like you could put your fingers like this inside of them. It's been a challenge because it's a stigma, no doubt. She did a beautiful job rehabbing it. We bought it as a hoarder house. I got a ridiculous deal on this house, $50,000. I got it for her. And we're on the market at like $250,000, $260,000. Great house. And they did a beautiful job doing the repairs. And basically what they did is they dug out the yard. They braced underneath the house, dug out the dirt, got the old drainage pipe, yanked it out, had it capped off properly, and then properly filled everything back in, blocked and braced it, jacked everything else up. It's like new. It's better than new. Used a licensed contractor with permits, the whole 9 yards, no problem whatsoever. The real estate agents, guys, are the ones making a big deal about it. They're like, oh my goodness, this is a sinkhole house. You don't want this. I'm going, what the hell's wrong with you? When was the last time you heard of a sinkhole in the city of St. Petersburg? Why don't you read the realtor remarks? And, read all the remarks that are there. But so that's where, unfortunately, realtors can shoot themselves in the foot. They are deal killers. They will kill a deal in a heartbeat. So there you go. I actually had somebody, I've got a listing on a golf course on a lake. And one moron agent was like, I heard that properties on lakes have sinkholes all the time. Well, guys, it overlooks a lake, but the lake is like a ways away. And this is a perfect house. I mean, this house is beyond flawless. My photographer felt guilty going inside to take the photographs. It's that nice. But one dumb agent came up with that comment. I'm like, did you have that conversation with your buyers? Well, no, which means yes. And it's like, idiot. God. Amanda says, yeah, oh Lord, agents kill sinkhole deals. Yes, that's true, because agents are always concerned about their liability, which I get. But you also have errors and omissions insurance and disclosures and addendums and all the other crap that realtors have you sign. I know, because I'm one of them. These are the facts. I mean, they are. Hey, Jane, how are you? So these are the facts. Is there risk with buying a sinkhole house? Of course. Is there risk of getting out of bed and going in and slipping and falling in the shower? Absolutely. For me, I don't want to buy houses with stigma. That's just my thing. Larry Harbolt just said this yesterday in his class. He will not buy a house where there's been a violent death, a suicide, something like that. He will not go near it. Not because it gives him the heebie-jeebies or anything like that. It's just that he doesn't want anything to do with a house that carries a stigma. He's afraid that he's had, I guess this has happened to him, or maybe it happened to Pete, but it happened to somebody, it was either him or somebody else, where there was a violent death in the house. They bought the house as an investment, fixed it up nice, rented it out to a nice family. Billy moves in as the kid of the house, goes to school. They said, where do you live? I live over the blue house on whatever street. Oh, that's where so-and-so killed themselves, or three killing, axe murder or whatever the heck went on. So now the kid's traumatized, has nightmares, won't sleep in the house, the whole 9 yards, all of that happens. And Larry couldn't handle it. I get it. I would have to feel the same way. I would not want to be that guy putting somebody in that situation, a little kid. So I agree with him. I won't touch a house that has a stigma like that. That's not as obnoxious as a sinkhole. A sinkhole is a lot of times people making a mountain out of a molehill. People fear what they don't understand. So, and I personally wouldn't do it because I think of everything I own, I'm going to sell it at some point down the road. So when I sell it, I'm going to allow for that stigma. Now, let's say that this is a small multifamily. If the engineers came out and said it was just settlement and it wasn't sitting on some cavern waiting to fall to China, I might consider it if I could get an amazing deal. And the deal would have to allow for all the repairs to be done properly, number one. Number two would have to allow for the lack of appreciation that I would suffer because of that stigma. So I'm conservative when I invest by nature. That's just how I invest because I'm too darn old to lose money. That's why I'm so strict when I teach others on the right way to do things so you don't lose money. Number one fear for real estate investors is losing money. I've already lost money as a real estate investor. I'm not doing that again. Okay, so I'm going to be conservative. That said, I'm going to allow for that stigma. So if I can't get full retail for something because of something, if I can't fix the something, 100% eliminate that stigma, then I just need to allow for it in my due diligence. That's all. Amanda says you have to disclose the sinkhole. They're actually arresting people up here for not disclosing. Good. Amanda has a haunted house. Guy died, and I guess he's still in there. Nice. Maybe you could have an exorcism done or something like that. We'll do a little Ouija board action. Maybe you can renegotiate better terms with him or something. Who knows? Can I buy that house? Eric says. Eric wants that, the Halloween. He's going to turn into a Halloween exhibit. See, he's a serial entrepreneur. He'll figure out a way to capitalize on that poor guy dying. He'll be like, well, you want to come experience the ghost experience, the Spring Hill Ghost Experience, Spring Hill Ghost Tours. Sit here, stare at the ceiling, give me $20. I guarantee something will happen. Right? What a great plan. All right. What questions do we have, guys? I'm actually glad we got on that topic. I haven't talked about sinkholes much because admittedly, I am not an expert on sinkholes, but I'm glad Amanda's here because I know she is. She loves them. More power to her. Not my thing. Let's see here. The next thing I want to talk about was Bitcoin. This has been interesting. And what's very interesting about this whole cryptocurrency thing is how polarizing the conversations are. I'm seeing on Facebook anyway, that there are people that are all the way, it's changing their life. Oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. And there's the other people that are just vehemently against it. I'm somewhere in the middle. If my knee-jerk reaction was, I don't understand it, therefore I fear it. Full disclosure, I got a couple grand invested in crypto as of last week before it went. So, but here's the thing, because I get this question a lot. People are messaging me all week in the last couple of weeks asking me what my thoughts are on Bitcoin. I'll do a podcast on it. Actually, I'm going to probably do a couple episodes on it because I want to learn more about it. I don't know anything about it or very little about it. I know enough to feel comfortable risking a certain amount of money. But outside of that, I'm a guy that learns better by doing. And I don't like to teach things that I haven't done myself. That's just me. But anyway, forgot where I was going with that. The Bitcoin, people say, I thought, well, it's not backed by anything. It's not gold. It's not silver. It's not palladium. It's not anything. It has no backing. So I don't want to invest in it. And then I thought, well, neither does the green in my wallet. US dollar has no backing either. It has a perceived value. Somebody tells us what the value of the dollar is. Okay. So it has a perceived value. There's a lesson in this in real estate, guys. I started thinking about it. I'm like, a lot of people believe in Bitcoin, like far more than they do the US dollar. Hey, it's not up to me to judge. We started accepting Bitcoin and nobody's paid us with it yet, but I'm curious. Larry and I started accepting Bitcoin for our classes. For my mastermind, I'll accept Bitcoin. If people want it, to pay in Bitcoin. Because there's people that are making huge returns in Bitcoin. Some people say those are hollow returns. Other people don't. what I think is that you can convert the gains to cash, which we understand, and pull them out. So I get, I'm not dead against it. But if people want to pay me in Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever you call it, Litecoin, I don't care. That's fine. I think it's great. I probably will convert it to cash. I may sell it for a little bit, but I'll probably convert it to cash because the revenue that we generate from the mastermind goes towards advertising and marketing expenses for the course when it's complete and finished, the final course, which will be the boxed program. So it's a business decision for us to open ourselves up to a larger audience to sell more seats by offering more ways to pay. And this is why I say to people, when you're selling something, like you're selling a house, offer to accept, to consider seller financing terms. Always. Not saying you are forced to accept them, just consider. And the reason being is you open it up to a much larger audience. So although everybody's entitled to their opinion on crypto, if you are somebody that has anything to sell, I don't care whether it be your bicycle or a house or a service or whatever, consider at least educating yourself a little bit on Bitcoin, at least enough to know how to convert it to cash and take your cash, because it is a way to develop a stream of income. It may swallow up whole and go away tomorrow, who knows? But for now, it's here and present. And it's a thing. It's like anything else. If somebody told the guy that come up with a fidget spinner never to do a fidget spinner, that guy's probably pretty rich right now, I'd say. And I still don't know what the hell a fidget spinner does. Will somebody explain it to me? I don't know what the point is. I was at that store in the mall, that Brookstone. And they've got fancy Brookstone ones now. And I'm like, the guy's like, well, you just spin it. Why? How is that a thing? Whatever. If it makes you happy, I guess fidget spin yourself to death. I could care less. But I don't know. It's kind of weird. Haas says, let's see. What type of reduction do you do when you're providing a CMA to a client who inherited an unrepaired sinkhole home? How much reduction for repaired sinkhole home when doing a CMA? I'm going to look at comparable data of homes in the exact same situation, which is a challenge. And it takes a lot more work on your part because you got to find those comps. So let's say you pull up a neighborhood and you've got Spring Hill's easy because like a lot of houses have them. So let's use Spring Hill as an example. On any given street, if there's 20 houses, there's a pretty good chance that probably half of those houses have had some sort of settlement at some point in the last 20 years. Some sort of claim, because a lot of folks got claims even though they really didn't have any major issues. So a lot of houses that are sinkhole houses don't really have any major issues because let's be honest, the entire state of Florida, it's all built on sand. There's not a property in the state of Florida that has not had some sort of settlement at all. Everybody's got something. This is why my insurance guy said that catastrophic or the sinkhole insurance specific policies are a waste of time on existing structures, because when they come out to inspect, they're going to tick off every little hairline crack. So get back to your question. As far as an unrepaired sinkhole home, that means that, well, did they file a claim or not is an issue. So they find the answer to that question. Was there a claim filed on it? Which you can look that up and find out if there was a claim or not. But an unrepaired sinkhole home, you're going to have to find another similar unrepaired sinkhole home and figure out what those sold for. And this is kind of where, and this is tough because realtors do the opposite of wholesalers. Wholesalers, well, I shouldn't say that. In this market, wholesalers, most of them do it all wrong anyway. But a good, smart wholesaler is focused on finding houses for buyers, which means they have a certain criteria they're out looking for. One of the things that I would do is reach out to sinkhole repair companies in the area and ask them these questions and ask them for some specific data, because a lot of stuff goes on outside of the MLS, first of all. So Haas, if you're looking in your area, the MLS may not be giving you all the information that you would need. In that case, go ahead and reach out to a sinkhole repair company. Find out what they buy houses for and what they've seen houses go for, and then get the addresses. Then look those properties up in the public records. Let me see. Can't really do that, Tyler. Not going to work. There are way too many variables. Can't just do a CMA. I would disagree, because the CMA is derived from data. So if you've got 3 houses that are similar houses that were all unrepaired sinkholes, that would give me 3 comps. That tells me what 3 people decided to pay for a house. True or false? Based on the fact that it's an unrepaired sinkhole. Now, where you're right, the reductions is going to be difficult. So I'm not going to use reductions as a method. I'm going to use sales numbers. Like, I'm not going to say, here's a perfect house, and I'm going to take 50 grand off because it had a settlement. I agree with Amanda. That's not going to work. At least in my mind, it's not going to work. Maybe an appraiser could do that somehow, but I can't. I don't think that makes sense. And I think you're going to have a hard time justifying that to a buyer. I'm more concerned about what has happened to houses that have had the same experience. For example, a fire home. Let's use fire as an example. You've got 3 houses in a neighborhood that have had a fire. A fire is a very different type of thing versus a house that hasn't had a fire. Some people would never buy a house with a fire because they're concerned there might be wire issues behind the wall or whatever their concerns are. So you have to look at 3 houses. The only comps you could use is other fire houses, really, or start looking at replacement value and things like that. When you're having it, one of the tricks that I've used in the past, Haas, that works very well, if you've got a complicated house to value, because there's a whole bunch of opinions, and Amanda's not wrong by any means. What a house is ultimately worth depends on the person that's going to buy it. Let's be honest. Doesn't matter what the seller thinks. Doesn't matter what you think. Doesn't really even matter what the appraiser thinks, except for what the appraiser thinks is what they're going to base the loan on. So what I've done in the past, if I have a home that's very difficult to value, is I will tell the seller, look, let's go ahead and get an appraisal on the property now. You pay for an appraisal, $400 or $500. Let's get the appraisal and see what the appraisal says. Okay, you'll get an appraisal just like you would if you were buying the house. Not a replacement cost appraisal, nothing like that, a general appraisal. Use the results of that appraisal in your marketing. Okay, and the seller can decide how if they want to sell it below or at appraisal, you can use it as a marketing piece. And then as an agent, I offer to reimburse them for that appraisal at closing out of my commission. I've done that in the past. It's worked very well. It works great for houses that are complicated because, man, I've sold some stuff. It's like, I couldn't, there's no comp for that, and it doesn't produce income. So I couldn't begin to tell you what the hell to price it at, you know? So like to Amanda's point, a reduction method I don't see as being effective unless you hired an appraiser and that appraiser had documented experience in unrepaired sinkhole homes. That's the key. What you'll find with appraisers, and the limitations of appraisals are many, and one of the most important things is that they completely don't always understand the market that they're appraising in. And we've had this in our area, and I know Amanda could attest to this, and so could Eric. We used to, during the housing crisis, we had appraisers coming over from Orlando and Miami doing appraisals, doing what they call desktop appraisals. So let's just call it a guess is really what it was. They're getting paid $400 a pop to just make it work. And they're just going, do. So the data was not accurate because it was not based on anything. So to get a relevant appraisal, the appraiser needs to have experience doing appraisals in that individual, in that area. For example, if you're going to do appraisals in Spring Hill, you shouldn't be using an appraiser from Orlando or Manatee County or hell, even Tampa. Request one that can provide experience in a given area. I recently had one that was in Spring Hill, and we were on the buy side, and we had a Spring Hill appraiser, and the guy was very knowledgeable, and everything worked out fine because he really knew the market. So that worked out great. And then let's see. Amanda says there's key questions to ask Haas that will help. Okay, Amanda, can you lay out those key questions? Because I would like to see those as well. I think that would be helpful for all of us. And if you want to just do them when you get a chance, and I'll draw attention to them when you type them up there, that'd be great. Eric says, how much does a house on a busy main drag decrease value as opposed to the same house? That can be huge, huge. Remember, when it comes to appraisal, appraisal is not a science, it's an art, which means everybody has an opinion. I had a listing over in Westchase that was on a busy street. Now, the seller didn't think it was a busy street. Of course, the seller doesn't want it to think it's a busy street because she's the one selling the house. I thought it was a moderately busy street. Okay, it was off of Country Way. I mean, really, it's not that busy. You got a bunch of people in BMWs running around in golf carts. Okay, big deal. Not like we're talking about US 19. But to buyers, I mean, this thing was on the golf course, but to buyers, they thought it was like a major deal. Like, oh my God, I can't believe that they would even build a house on this road. And I'm thinking, really? Okay. So I was kind of down the middle of the road on that. So there's a perfect example of if I said that, if I knocked 10% off because it was on a busy street, when I got buyers coming in the door going, oh my God, I can't believe it's on the street. Well, then I'm not quite accurate because some people are going to think it's a big deal. It's very difficult to assign a percentage to it, Eric. I wish I could because it's very much an it depends answer. When I threw out 10%, in that case, that was $25,000. And nobody seemed to care that it was $25,000 because they couldn't get past the stigma. So for them, it came down to how much it's going to cost me to install super duper industrial grade windows and insulation so I can't hear any traffic noise. And my answer was about $25,000, which is where I can come up with the $25,000. So I'm looking at when I see a stigma, how much does it cost? And this is my investor mindset. How much does it cost to correct the issue? Can I throw money at this problem if I had to make it go away? So, and I know that's contrary to what an appraiser might tell you, but I'm not an appraiser. I'm a guy that actually buys property because I don't do anything for $400. So for me, I would look at, okay, could I put up a brick wall to eliminate traffic noise? Could I change the windows? So if I wanted to do all that, how much does that cost? And going back to the sinkhole conversation, if I was to buy a property on a busy road, like a multifamily property, I'm thinking about that cost when I'm buying. Because remember, guys, we make our money when we buy. I would think about, well, if I buy this 8-unit building, it's on a busy street, all the moms are going to be worried about their little kids running out in traffic and getting run over, right? So that's a concern, which means I'm going to have more vacancy than I would if I was off the busy street. So if my vacancy goes up by 5%, how much does that equate to on an annual basis in real dollars? And if that's, say, $5,000. So $5,000, and I'm going to own this building for 10 years, that's $50,000. So I'm going to factor that in my brain and say, I'm going to need to negotiate better because I have to allow for a higher vacancy loss. So one of the ways I'll do that is when I do my calculations, and I know you took the course on my email course on Mailbox Money Mastery. In the vacancy loss section, if it would be 10% normally for that neighborhood, I may put 15 for that property because of the busy street. Therefore, reduced income. And when you reduce the income, you reduce the value. So it all plays in together. You see what I'm saying? Same thing with something that's a maintenance issue. Like, well, this roof is kind of, now what? Well, I'm going to have to allow for that, what they call CapEx, capital expenditures. So how long will the roof last? 5 years? Okay. So I know that out of my profits, I need to take X amount per year out to make sure that I can pay for that roof when it comes time. Here's the thing, that can go wildly wrong. And here's a good example of that. We're almost out of time, but I want to cover this. I have a listing right now over on Gandy in St. Pete. I've had it for a while. It's a condo. It's gorgeous. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. $300 and some odd $1,000, $355,000. But the maintenance fee is almost $900 a month for a maintenance fee. The condo fee is $900. It's $800 and some odd dollars a month. Well, everybody that goes and look at it's like, how much? I mean, for a condo fee, you got to be kidding me. What do they provide? A pool and palm trees. course, everybody's like, well, no, I'm not doing that. So here's what I found. So I got the budget because I thought that was a typo at first. Like, there's no way, man. I mean, how can that be that much? I know gorgeous places in South Tampa that are half of that. So I looked at the budget. I requested the budget after doing the dance at the HOA. I got the budget. Look, they're never going to have an assessment, which is beautiful as a condo, because they've got so much money in surplus. It's ridiculous. They're allowing for things for they're collecting now for stuff like literally 25 years down the road. They had I think they had 5 different parking lot recoats and a replacement built in to this budget, and they're collecting for that now. I'm like, but these properties aren't going to be worth anything if you keep this up. Nobody wants to buy them. So you're going to destroy the property value. I mean, I get that you're conservative, but at some point you got to say enough is enough. I mean, at some point you're going to bankrupt your own setup. I mean, if the association's rich, but nobody lives there, what's going to happen to the association's money? Because the cost of running an association is not cheap. I can tell you that right now. So when you're allowing for CapEx and future expenditures, be aggressive, but within reason. And I know that's hard to understand, but like, don't allow for replacing the roof every 5 years. Because if you got to replace the roof every 5 years, you need a new roofer. 15 years, great. But otherwise, maybe even longer than that. But just don't overdo it when you're allowing your expenses. And when that's one of the reasons I don't like condo investments. I think there's no such thing as a condo that has investment value. And this is a perfect example of why. You've got unskilled, untrained people making decisions that impact your cash flow, your profitability. That's a recipe for disaster. I mean, I could tell you horror stories about condos, but they just don't make good investment material. They're not good investment stock. They're just not. I have a hard time. Nobody's ever been able to convince me otherwise. So that's that. They want to lease their Lambos and Bentleys. Yeah, I wish. Oh, good. So Amanda popped up the questions. This is important, guys. So listen up. Questions you're going to want to ask regarding a sinkhole property. Do they have the original sinkhole report? Very important. What's the recommendation to fix? Also very important. That's a big mistake people make, is they assume. Sometimes what is perceived as a catastrophic need for repair can be very simple. And that house I told you about in St. Pete is a great example of that. It cost her about 10 grand to do that fix. But when investors are out there looking at it, they're like, oh, it's going to cost $1 million to fix this. We're going to have to tear it down. No, it's going to cost 10 grand. Relax. But that's great because they didn't bother putting in offers and we did. What's the recommendation to fix, grout, pinned, or both? How old is the report? That's good because as time goes on, what's been reported for the sinkhole may change. What's being done around the area is another one that I'd want to know. Was there a payout? And if so, how much? Good information. Was the mortgage released? In other words, did they is the mortgage no longer attached to the property? Where is the house located? And is it currently insured? I'm glad you brought that up, Amanda, because before we wrap up, I want to throw out this one little gold nugget. If you ever find out, and you'll be surprised how many people own properties that are not insured. If you are negotiating with a property that's not insured, and in your negotiations, you learn that it's not insured, that is a great negotiating point. A very good negotiating point. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let me ask you, I hate to think about the worst, but in the meantime, I want to wrap this up as quickly as possible and get this property insured for you. We all know that we live in a changing society every day. Weather patterns, fires, floods, all these things happen. I'm concerned about you not having insurance on this property. Let's go ahead and get this wrapped up and protect your investment. I want to protect your equity. Let's go ahead and get this taken care of and get it under contract now. It's a great closing technique. I've used it several times. It works like a charm. Because you got to think, guys, a lot of times people will make decisions at one point in their life, and then even though they realize later they're bad decisions, not do anything to go fix it. And on more times than I can count, that's been the case. Somebody has had had a house with no insurance. At the time, they were like, the heck with the insurance company. I'm going to save $1,000 a year. until the hurricane comes and it's in the Gulf and they can't write policy. And now they're sweating bullets. And man, I hate to say this, but when a hurricane's coming or things like that, it's a great time to be looking for opportunity. Lastly, before we go, Christmas time is upon us. We're past Thanksgiving. Everybody's getting into, I'll deal with it after the first of the year mentality. That's why I got the mastermind right after the first of the year. So put your money where your mouth is. That said, between now and Christmas or now and New Year's is a great time to get out in the field and start writing offers and putting deals together. A lot of people are starting to analyze the last 12 months. They're starting to think about what 2018 is going to look like for them. People want to solve problems at this time of the year. People that have problems are looking for solutions more so in the next few weeks than at any other point throughout the year. So if you're wholesaling, you're flipping, you're buying hold, whatever your thing is, get out there, roll up your sleeves, solve some problems. You're going to have a captive audience if you hammer down in the next couple of weeks. So just keep that in mind. Ladies and gents, thanks for coming out. I appreciate it. We will catch up with you next week. If you guys have questions or want to get on a strategy call about what we're covering in the the Mailbox Money Mastermind, then get on the phone with me. You can go to that link. It gives contact information there, and look forward to seeing you on the other side. So talk to you guys later. Have a great week.